Beautiful. And we're going to get going with our TM6 showcase. So the very first thing we're going to make, now you guys cannot see my screen fantastic. I'm sorry, I can't get my light exactly right, but hopefully you can see it a little bit. This is basically making a sticky chili beef stir fry. So we're going to cook off some beef and then we're going to add all of our veggies in and stir fry it up. So to begin with for this one, we marinate. So we pop in soy sauce, honey, tomato sauce, and some chili into the mixing bowl, mix it together and pour it over some steak. Now that needs to go into the fridge and marinate for a little while. So I've already done mine. Now a little tip, if I click exactly here, I'm just going to step you guys through here because you all have a TM6 already. So this recipe says add in your soy sauce, your honey, your tomato sauce, and your chili. I've left the chili out for me.
Can I just interrupt before you go on?
Go.
Can you put that whole mixing bowl in the fridge?
Absolutely.
Okay, I didn't know that. So you just make your marinade, put the beef in, and then chuck that whole thing in the fridge. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Yeah, that's where having a second one of these is really handy.
Yeah, handy.
Because I can have one sitting in the fridge and then one out here doing something else. Do any of you guys have a second bowl?
Well, with the 31, it was like you couldn't get the things wet, and it was a bit. They'd always say, "Oh, don't get the base of it wet and stuff." I just thought, oh, maybe sitting in the fridge. I don't know, just me.
Yeah. No, that's all good. No, absolutely, this one can go in the fridge. Same deal with this. These pins under here do want to be dry when they go back in there, but they can get wet. So getting them wet isn't an issue. And they get a bit cold in the fridge, but they certainly don't get damaged or anything like that. So absolutely fine to pop it into the fridge. So this one tells you to put in those marinade ingredients and mix the marinade up in here.
Yeah.
And then cut your beef up separately and mix it all together in a bowl. But I love to utilize the Thermomix wherever I can. So instead of doing that, I actually added my beef straight in on top of the marinade and mixed it in there. So if you flick your blade over to reverse, so doing that, I just clicked home, over to the speed and hit reverse. And then I went around to speed 2. And that speed 2 is just enough to mix it all together, coat all of the beef, but won't actually chop any of it up. So it means that your hands are free and clean when you're wanting to marinate. And this works for chicken, any of your beef, lamb, anything like that you need to marinate. Especially if you have a second bowl, because you don't even have to worry about, cleaning it out and that sort of thing. But even without, I love it because I don't have to go and wash my hands all the time while I'm cooking. I can just keep my hands nice and clean, do it all in the Thermomix.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries at all. So with having my beef here and marinated all ready to go, this sits for a little while. If I just press the green, I go back into my recipe where I was up to. So this has got to go and sit for about half an hour or so. Mine's ready to go. And now we pop in 10 grams of sesame oil. Now, sesame oil has a particular flavor, and that is why it's used in this dish. If you don't have it or you don't like it, you can just use any olive oil or whatever you have. But the sesame oil, if you go and buy it, it has a really distinct flavor, and that is what gives this dish the flavor that it has. So you pop in about 10 grams, scales are on, so it's all weighing in. Now we add the steak and the marinade in. Mine already is, obviously. I'm just going to grab a spatula out, give that a little mix around, make sure that all my marinade is down in the bowl. See if you have any meat mixed stuck in here around the blade at all, you can just flick it off so that it's all going to get cooked nice and even, and you'll prevent any bits sort of being, left not quite cooked. So just push them off the blade, pop that back on there, and this is the next step here. It just says ensure that the meat is evenly distributed around the mixing bowl. So we'll give you that little prompt if you didn't know anyway. And now we pop on the splash guard. So I'm going to leave my measuring cup out, and I'm going to use this little one. Have you guys, any of you used this before? Yeah? Some of you have, some of you haven't. This is going to sit on the top. What it's going to do is let all of the moisture out, but it's going to stop any oil from spitting out. This is where it's really, really safe. Now, if I just turn one click, this is starting this browning or sizzling mode. So it's going to be mixing the steak now around, and then it will stop and it will actually start to sizzle. And this works really, really effectively and really, really quick. Now, this goes for about 5 minutes. So while that's going, up, you can't see my screen, fantastic, but next to your preview or your next button, there's 3 dots in a line. I'm just going to tap there and go recipe detail. This takes me back to the entire recipe. I'm going to scroll down and see what's coming next and what I need to be getting ready while I'm waiting for it to cook. So the next things I need is 300 grams of mixed vegetables for stir frying. Now, usually for these Zooms, we get everything ready beforehand, but I think it's really cool to do it a little bit on the fly and show you guys exactly what it's like to actually cook when you have a Thermomix in your kitchen. So,
sorry. One of the ladies she keeps getting kicked off.
Oh, what sort of message is she getting?
I'm not sure. I just had Amber on here message me to say that she keeps getting kicked off. Another lady keeps getting kicked off. She was on and then she got kicked off.
Is it possibly an internet issue? There's nothing going on at my end to know why people would be getting kicked off. Is it just dropping in and out?
I'm not sure. I'll have to check with her.
I'm not 100% sure. I had trouble getting on as well. It just wouldn't let me join the meeting. Took me about 20 goes to actually join. So I think she's having the same issue.
That's a bummer. It possibly is a connection issue or a reception issue, possibly with all the wind and things around the area. My signal is good at the moment. There's nothing I can change in my settings. That would be allowing people in or out. If it isn't loading, it's most likely a connection issue from the other end.
I'll just assuming. Get her to keep trying.
Yeah, get her to keep trying. I'm recording it, so she will be able to watch back. We can always run another one. She particularly wants to see things as well. Because unfortunately there isn't much I can do from my end to change that. Yeah, sorry. It could just be the weather. That if you're not located locally, we've had terrible weather. We had no power all night last night with the big storms, and although we're back up today, I imagine the other areas it's really windy and stuff, so it could just be bad service all around. That's preventing that, but hopefully they can get back in. All right, so while this is cooking away, I'm just going to quickly get my veggies ready. So 300 grams of stir-fried veggies. You can use absolutely anything in here. Add as much colour in as you'd like, or whatever favourite veggies that you like. I'm just going to grab a knife. And you only need about 300 grams. So this is a fairly small size. It only serves sort of 2 people, but it is perfect for what we want tonight. So I'm just going to chop up a little bit of broccoli. I won't need tons. A little bit of broccoli there. I've got here a can of baby corn, so I'll put a few of these in. And I'm going to do some beans. This is a really nice one to do with colour. If you want to add in some carrots, some red capsicum, that sort of thing, you can make this look pretty fancy and pretty colourful. I'm going to go with all green tonight, but you can absolutely put whatever you'd like in here. Snow peas and things like that are beautiful in your stir fries as well. And if I click up here, I've only got a minute left. I love dishes like this. I can marinate the steak early in the morning or the night before, leave it in the fridge, and then when I come home, pop it on to cook. I've got 5 minutes to get some veggies ready, and then dinner is literally on and only a little bit away. It is so quick and easy. So I'm going to leave my veggies here. I probably won't need much more than that because it isn't a ton. We'll let this count down. Now we're going to transfer that meat into a bowl. So I'm just going to grab out another thermo server. Put this one. I'll just put it there for a second. Do any of you guys have a thermoserver at all? Yeah, some of you do, some of you don't. These are something that we do quite a lot with the Thermomixes. They're basically a giant thermos. So this one is a 2.9 litre one. So it's pretty big. You can fit a full meal in this. They are double insulated, so they'll keep food piping hot for up to 2 hours and keep it really cold as well. You might be able to see mine back here has got the frozen fruit in it for the ice cream. And this one, I'm going to pop my meat into to sit while I cook the veggies. All right. So you can see that in there. Beautifully cooked off and just starting to brown. You can really smell and taste the flavour and the caramelization that gets released once you hit those higher temperatures. The meat doesn't have to be completely visibly burnt or visibly browned. Same with your onions and things like that. It only needs to be just slightly, and that's enough to give it that flavour and really release those caramelization flavours. I'm going to leave my meat in there. Just going to stick it over here for a second. And now we're going to add in our 300 grams of mixed vegetables. So straight into the bowl, no washing or anything like that. I'm going to throw in those beans. I'm going to throw in my broccoli. And I'm going to throw in some baby corn. Might need a little bit more broccoli. You could cut these up a bit more if you wanted to. However you want your stir fry to look, feel. All right, that's 250. I'm going to have a couple more bits of broccoli. Really, really quick. I'm going to put the whole lot in. It's close enough. All right, a little bit more sesame oil. Again, if you don't like the flavour, just swap it for something else. 10 grams of sesame oil. And pop our lid on. And this one, we have the measuring cup for. So measuring cup in. Oops, and we're going to cook that down. So 3 minutes there. So while this 3 minutes goes, this is generally a night where I'm doing dinner. I'd look ahead. Next, I'm going to add back in my sauteed beef. It's going to cook for another 3 minutes, and then it's going to be ready to serve. So this is my time now to go, all right, let's get tidied up. Let's put my veggies away. Let's wipe this stuff off, get the plates out, get the kids out of the bath, do whatever you need to do at that time of night to be ready to serve dinner. You might even have time to stack the dishwasher or do anything like that. I'm just going to move my stuff all out of the road for you guys. And I'm going to turn my second machine on so that the next step I can do over there. I'm going to move away my scraps. And I'm going to save all of these. So got here a big chunk of broccoli, all of my ends off my beans. I'm not going to throw mine out. I keep all of mine, put them in a freezer bag, in a snap-up bag in the freezer, and I'll use these for stock. So the next time that I make a veggie stock, I will use all of these bits and pieces in it instead of using veggies straight out of my fridge. You can hear this is making a little bit of a noise. It's just those chunkier veggies going around. I'm just double checking in there to make sure everything's good. And you can always feel free to do that with your Thermomix. Lift the lid up, double check, make sure everything's okay, especially when it's going at a nice small speed. It's absolutely safe to do. Just those big pieces of corn popping around. I'm going to sit this over here. And with a minute left, just stop that for 1 second. I'm going to give it a little mix around by hand. Just make sure there isn't anything in there that's stuck. But it all sounds pretty good. One big bit of corn in under the blade. That might be what's making the funny noise. You can get that out of there. Might go around sounding a bit nicer. Yeah, there we go. All right, we'll let it finish off that last minute. All right, move these out of the road. And the next thing we're going to do is get on our pizza dough. So, who here has made pizza dough before? Made dough, bread, rolls, anything like that? Amber has. No one else has. Awesome.
I have literally had my Thermi for 2 days.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So I've cooked not much.
Yeah, that's cool. What have you made so far?
Last night we made the chicken and spinach enchiladas.
Yum.
Oh, so good. And I love poached eggs and boiled eggs, and we did porridge.
Beautiful, beautiful. And were you happy with those?
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Cool.
make
That's
the
awesome.
best
That's awesome.
bread.
Yeah.
Yes,
Best bread and pizza
it
dough.
really does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like I'm a
Yeah.
cook and I could never make bread, and now I make the best bread.
See, I haven't tried it. I'm just so nervous. So
Don't be. Try it. But you will eat the whole lot hot with butter.
I love it. I love it. I was with a customer today and they said, I haven't done dough yet because I don't know where the dough hooks are. They said, you don't need dough hooks. You just follow the instructions. It'll just tell you how to do it. They go, no. I've had one of these things before. You've got to have like different attachments and hooks and all this. I'm like, no, not on here. Not at all. All right. So next thing is we're just popping that beef back in. So this is stayed. You can probably even see the steam coming off that. It's still piping hot. That beautiful thermoserver's kept it nice and warm. So I'll tip this back in. And I'm going to go next. Now we're going to pop the splash guard on now and brown it off. Now this goes for a few minutes. So this is where I'm going to utilize my second Thermomix. So I'm going to pop my splash guard on and I'm just going to move it over here. So you're not going to see this step. I'm just going to have it going in the background so that you guys can see the pizza dough. I'm just bringing up the recipe over here, jumping into the step where I'm up to, and I will just keep on going, just giving that bowl a little mix around and make sure the beef gets cooked. All right, right into here. And we're off. All right. Beautiful. So while that one's cooking over there, I'm going to clack my other bowl in, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to jump back over here to my weekly planner where I have my pizza dough recipe. You can see all the things I have down to utilize. Do any of you guys use the weekly planner on Cookie Do? No. Your excuse, Kayla, because you've only just got it, but everyone else. No, it is really, really handy. For stuff like this, I just dropped everything that I'm cooking tonight. I generally do a bit of a plan at the beginning of my week, and I just try to drop, we don't need a full meal every night because we don't eat the full serving usually. We usually have leftovers and things like that. Some nights we cook other things, not every night we cook everything in the Thermomix. Sometimes we just cook a portion of it, a resource or something like that. But I generally meal plan for my week, drops maybe 4 or 5 meals onto the different days, and then just make sure I have all the ingredients to cook all those things. And it means I don't have to go back to the shop then until next week. So it's really, really handy. It means that I'm not running back into Coles every second day to grab something else for dinner. I just do one shot and then I have everything in the fridge to keep on going. Sometimes I can even do 2 or 3 weeks ahead, depending on what I need. And I've only got to duck back in to get, some fruit and veg or meat or things like that. So you can be really, really clever if you can use your meal plan. Get a bit organized, but save yourself some money too. And groceries are just getting so expensive now. If you can find ways to save yourself a little bit of money, it's absolutely worth it. So this one begins with 220 grams of lukewarm water. So I'm just tipping this in. Scales are measuring this. I don't have this pre-weighed out. 220 grams. Oops, there we go, close enough. Now this calls for a teaspoon of sugar. That's just to help the yeast grow. I always leave the sugar out. I try not to cook with any extra sugar. So I'm going to leave it out, and I'm just going to use 2 teaspoons of yeast. Now, if you are new to making bread, making dough, and you haven't done it at home before, this sort of yeast you can usually just buy from Coles or Woolies. It will last for ages. Just keep it in the fridge. Yeast is like a live culture, so if you keep it in your pantry, it can actually die or get a bit too old, and then it won't work properly. Your dough won't rise, your bread will just stay, dense and small, and it won't get light and fluffy. So keep it in the fridge once you've opened it. If you do finding that it isn't working after a while, that's where that little bit of sugar can help it to grow. But if you're keeping it nice and fresh, you're keeping it in your fridge, you shouldn't really need to add in extra sugar. It should just work as it is. Now we're going to put our lid on. Grab myself a lid. And we're just going to mix this together. Now, this called for lukewarm water, which means that I needed to have it already a bit warm. It wasn't going to warm it up itself. Some recipes, and if you go to make like a basic dough or something like that, it will set the temperature for 37 degrees and give itself 2 minutes to warm up, and it will just ask you to start with cold water out of the tap. So the temperature that I needed for this is about 37 degrees. I've been making dough and pizza dough and bread and things for a while, so I know how that feels just to stick my hand under the tap and go, that's about right. But if you're new to making it, if your recipe will either call for it, or if not, you can just manually set it. So click on your time, extend it to 2 minutes instead of just the 20 seconds. Give yourself 37 degrees and then turn it to speed 1. And that'll just heat that water to that perfect temp. Because if it is too hot, you will upset the yeast as well and burn it a little bit. So just try and, if you're not sure what that 37 degrees feels like, let this set it for you. That's why we have the 37 degree temperature mark on all the Thermomixes. All right, now we get to the fun stuff. And you can see there, that's all mixed in beautifully. We get to the fun stuff and we add in our baker's flour. Now, baker's flour is a little bit different to the normal flour, that, like plain flour that you get at the shops. It's a little bit stronger and it works a little bit better for your doughs and things like that. So you can usually get it in your supermarket and places like that. I buy mine in bulk from a wholesale place because I make lots of it, but you can just buy bags of it from the supermarket. Now, this calls for 400 grams. I do about half and half with wholemeal flour, just because I like it. I like the texture and I find that it sort of keeps everybody a bit fuller for a little bit longer. If you do have big tubs of flour, the measuring cup is awesome to use for scooping things out. It has got the measurements inside it, so you can actually use it like a real measuring cup as well. I'm going to measure in my 400 grams. Now we pop in some olive oil, about 30 grams of olive oil, and a little bit of salt. If you're a measurer, feel free to measure. I'm not much of a measurer. That's about a teaspoon. Then we pop on our lid and we give this a knead. Now, for those of you who have never kneaded with your Thermomix, this is where you don't need dough hooks or anything like that. It will just do all of this using the blade. What it actually does is tosses the dough up and back down again and up and back down again. And that mimics that kneading process of pushing the dough together and kneading it all around. You'll be amazed how this comes out if you've never seen dough done before. This is about 2 minutes. As you can probably see, my machine's rocking a little bit. And as this dough comes together and it gets kneaded around, some of your doughs may even need up to 6 minutes. Your machine will rock a little bit. Don't stress, it's all absolutely completely fine, but just be a little bit mindful of how close it is to the edge of your bench, that it doesn't actually walk right off the edge. So we always say when you are kneading, keep an eye on it. I generally say don't walk out of the room, just keep an eye on it because it can move around a little bit. I always just sit mine back a little bit on the bench if I can. I'm just going to move it back there. Just move it back a bit so that it doesn't rock too much, so that it doesn't move too far. Back on. Yeah, just while it's in that kneading mode. But that's the only thing to sort of keep a little bit of an eye on. That's going to come out in a second. And over here, we have our sticky chili beef ready to serve. So this has had its marinade, had its browning, added the veggies in, cooked them off, added the beef, and now it is all done. Just gonna back there. So I'm going to scoop a little bit of this out for you guys to see. This is my sticky chili beef. Put this thermos over here. I'm going to dish it out. It is honestly the quickest stir fry that you'll do, and you'll have no washing up, nothing to do afterwards. And just with those few ingredients, tastes absolutely awesome. So there you have it. Sticky chili beef. Pull it up here so you guys can see. There's plenty of sauce in the bottom, and all that meat's been absolutely browned off and beautiful. I've left quite a lot of the chili out of this just because it's for me and for the kids. We don't need a lot of chili in our food, but if you really wanted to spice it up, you could add as much in as you'd like. But that is basically it. Says that it feeds 2 people, 2 serves. They're pretty big servings. You could also add some rice or something like that and bulk it out for a couple more people too. So I'll put my lid on there. My server lid's over here. Put my lid on there. There's our first dish done. And here we have our pizza dough. So if I click next here, move that back, I'm just going to pull out my dough mat. Now, if you don't have one of these, don't stress. You can still make your pizza dough and bread and everything. These are an item that Thermomix do, and they're probably one of the most highly recommended things if you are going to do dough work, because they just make it so easy. So generally, however you do dough, whether it be conventional or whether it be in a Thermomix, once you've made your dough up, you need to get it out of the bowl or whatever it's in, get it onto a floured surface generally, and knead it together, form it into a ball and leave it to proof. So with the Thermomix, this is what it's telling me to do now, is get it out of here, transfer it onto a floured bench and work it into a ball. This mat is silicone, so I don't really need any flour on it. Could add a little bit on if I wanted to, or a little bit of oil. But basically, I just tip out this dough straight onto here. This last little bit that's stuck in here out. There you go. And you can see there I've got barely anything left in my bowl, so it does a pretty good job. And then I have this blob of dough. Because this is silicone, it isn't going to stick or anything like that. So I can just knead it up into a ball. I press next on here, it just tells me now to cover it with cling wrap and leave it to prove for an hour or so in a warm place. So instead of wrapping this in cling wrap, I hate using cling wrap because I hate the waste, but it's also just another thing that I've got to deal with, another thing I've got to peel off, get messy hands, stick in the bin, all of that sort of thing. This mat is designed to insulate the heat. So it isn't just a cheap silicone mat, but it also has fibers in here to help keep the heat in. This dough is a little bit warm because we started with warm water and then we gave it that couple minutes of kneading. This is a bit warm to touch. So when I roll it in this mat, this is going to actually help keep the heat in. On a cold night, like we have at the moment, keeping your dough warm to prove is really important. So if I want this to prove nice and quick, I'm going to actually stick this closer to the fire or somewhere, maybe on the top of the oven that's going or somewhere like that. So it can just to help it along to proof. But basically now you just leave this until it's sort of doubled in size. In this, it will just puff right out and expand all of the mat. And then it'll be ready to use. When it comes to making your pizzas, you just roll it back out in here. Divide this into 2 or 3 pizzas and then roll them out on here. You've got your circles on here to use as guidelines. Everything is done on these mats, and then they just wipe off or go through the wash up or the dishwashers at the end. You've got no mess at all on your bench. So just saving yourself having to, clean off a floured bench and all that sort of stuff at the end. That's where your time is really, really saved in the kitchen and your hands are still clean. So I'm going to stick my dough over here. Now, last thing, who remembers what we're making last? Does anyone remember from the beginning? Pop it into the chat or come off mute if you remember. We're doing 3 things. No one?
Fruit, something, frozen.
Ice cream, fruit dream.
Fruit ice cream, yes. So this one isn't Fruity Dream. Some of you guys have already heard of Fruity Dream. But this one is called a fruit ice cream. If you guys are after recipes, our lovely Toya has been putting them into the chat box. So feel free just to flick over there and have a look. You should just be able to click those links straight through to Cookie Dough and have a look at those exact recipes. But
Another
if-
thing,
Yeah,
the other night, I actually set my pizza dough in my Varoma and set my Thermomix on the fermentation mode for an hour, and it proved my dough.
That's a really cool idea.
So I saw another consultant.
Cool. That's awesome. I love that idea. I'm just gonna bring this up here. That's a really cool thing to be doing, especially in winter as it gets cold. There are tons of different things you could do to prove it. Like in summer, or if it's warm, if it's sunny, you can pop it out in the sun. You can stick it in the boot of your car if it's hot. Some people will warm their thermoserver, so put boiling water in their thermoserver and stick your dough on the lid. There's lots of different things you can do, but that one's a really cool one. Pop it up into the Varoma with your bowl on fermentation mode. That's awesome. All right, I'm just looking for this exact one. I mustn't have saved it before I jumped in. That's okay. Here we are. All right. So this one is called fruit ice cream. Now, I heard Fruity Dream get yelled out. Fruity Dream is so popular because it is absolutely fantastic. But this one is slightly different. So Fruity Dream, if you haven't tried it, is frozen fruit, an egg white and sugar. And it might sound like a really weird combination, but it is incredible. The egg white and the sugar make a meringue, and then you chop the fruit and whip it together, and it becomes like this light, fluffy, mousse-like texture. It's absolutely delicious. If you haven't made it, go and try it. Definitely add it to your list to try. But this one is called fruit ice cream. I love this because it's just a total different variation. You can make it dairy-free. You can make it keto-friendly. You can really do anything you want to suit everyone with this one. And it is a little bit more decadent like real ice cream because of the cream in it as well. So to begin with, you pop in about 60 grams of sugar, just raw sugar. Now, if you're a sugar fan, add the full amount in. If you're not, leave it out. Go somewhere in between. Do whatever you want with this one. I put about half the sugar in, but it is absolutely fine without it as well. If you are not liking real sugar and you want to use honey, monk fruit, different type of sweetener, you can add that in as well as an alternative. We're going to pop the lid on and we're just going to mill this sugar down. If you haven't seen this, just wait 15 seconds.
Just a question.
Yeah, go.
I get very worried already about my scales and not moving it while it's on. And I notice you're moving it back and forth. Like, is it gonna wreck the scales? Like, I'm petrified. I'm like, no one touch it unless it's in transportation mode. Like, just leave it alone.
Yeah. So here's the thing with the scales. You got 1 foot at the front, 2 feet at the back, yeah?
Yep.
They're little rubber feet. That is where your scales are located.
Okay.
So you never want to be dragging it or sliding it.
Okay.
That is where your scales will get upset.
Okay.
Lift it and move it as much as you want.
Okay. Perfect.
But just lift it. Don't drag it or slide it. That's the big difference. Yeah?
Right. Yeah. Wonderful.
So no, don't be worried at all about moving it. My kitchen's very small. And if I had to leave them in one place, I just wouldn't get the use out of them. I've got to be able to move them around. But yeah, always lift. If that's something that you're interested in, Thermomix are about to release, you can actually pre-order them now, a glide board for your Thermomix. Different brands have been making slide boards for a little while, but none of them have been approved by Thermomix mainly because of the way that they sit on the bench. And I've seen a lot, sometimes people will pop their machine on, say like a chopping board or something like that. And what you'll see is especially when it's kneading or chopping or something, the whole thing will slide on the bench. And I've seen some slide like this right across the bench, really scarily. And some of those boards they paid really good money for. But that's why Thermomix have never ever approved them, because they're just not safe. So the one they've designed has grooves for your feet to sit in to help it stay in the one place, and it has suctions on the bottom to actually stick it to the bench. But then it has, I haven't got mine yet, so it's really hard to explain, but then it has little bits on the side that you tilt, and then it's got like almost like wheels to roll it around. So you'll sort of lift it a little and then slide it around, but the rest of the time it's actually stuck to the bench nice and steady. So once all the consultants get them, we'll be doing, videos and stuff of them so you can get a better idea. I'm sure that whoever you're with can come to you, or you can go to them and you can see one in person if you want to. But they will be a really good alternative to be able to move it around if you're finding it's a bit heavy to lift, or if you are still worried that maybe not you, but maybe the other people in the house might not listen and drag it. That's where those glide boards will really come in handy. So just chat with your consultant and they can, work out whether it's something that you need to. But certainly don't be worried about moving it around.
Thank you.
No worries. All right, so for this one, we need 500 grams of mixed fresh fruit, frozen and cut into pieces. So I've got two things here to show you guys. These are just frozen mixed berries. I love this because one of my favorite customers, she came along to a cooking experience and she said, I do not want one of these. I only came for the food. I'm not interested at all. And I started to make this and she came over and went, my gosh, it's milled it down. And after that, she was just went, I want to see what this can do. And she was a keto and we made berries, sugar and cream and made a keto ice cream, and it just blew her mind. And she went, I can't believe you just made that in this thing. Get me one now. I need to make this keto ice cream at home. And I was just so stoked. She absolutely loved it. So that's our icing sugar. So raw sugar milled right down to icing sugar, which is one of our key features of the Thermomix. But if you want to use berries, you can keep this really low carb. Adding in cream will obviously give you the fat component. So if you're wanting to do something like keto, someone who is, this is a really, really good alternative to having, your traditional ice creams. On the other end of that, and this is why I have an ice cream tub here, I have little kids who love to just eat a bit of fruit and not come back to it. Like take a few bites out of an apple or eat half a banana and decide that's all they want. So I freeze it all. So I've got in here like pieces of apple. I've even got like half nectarines that didn't get eaten, bits of pear, grapes, banana, all sorts of stuff. I just add it into here. So whenever there's a half-eaten apple, I chop it up, stick it in here. And when it comes to things like this, I just use this or a mix if I want a mix of berries or whatever it would be. But again, just keeping those cost savings down and meaning that we don't have any waste at the end of the week. I hate throwing out all of the, bits and pieces that didn't get used. So this is just another way. If I can throw all my veggie toppings into stock, I could throw these into ice cream and things. It's a pretty good use of using all of the veggies and fruit that you get and not throwing things away. So I'm going to do about half and half. About 250 of each. Because the berries are really, really nice. There we go. The rest is berries. Right. Now, I'm going to keep losing the lid over here. Put the lid on. Oops. Icing sugar everywhere. Now, this is going to be super noisy, so Zoom will probably cut my sound out. If you can't hear anything, that's why. We're just going to chop this up. Now, as you get confident with your Thermomix, one thing you'll learn is that if something doesn't chop properly or something like that, don't stress, just go back and give it a second chop. To do that, if you're in a recipe, you can either click back or next back into the step you were just at, just go again, or you can click home and just hit your speed dial and give it a second chop that way. So they're the two different ways you can do it. But if you're finding, see like this, lots of it's sort of gone up the side and hasn't really gotten chopped how well it could have, because I know I want this to be nice and smooth and creamy ice cream, I want it to be already really pureed and smooth and not have any lumpy bits at all. So I go back into my recipe. This just tells me now to add my cream straight in and just whip it. Instead of doing that, I'm just going to put my lid back on. I'm going to leave my measuring cup out, and I'm going to stick my spatula straight through the hole. This is why we make these spatulas. That's why you get one with your Thermomix, because this bend means you can stick that in there and it won't touch the blades. So this time, while it blends, again, it will be noisy, but watch. So that time, as the fruit was flicked up against the side, I was able to just push it all back down onto the blade so it could just keep on blending and chopping down, and I wasn't going to end up with too many bits left out. You can see, you may not be able to see great on Zoom, but that's much, much more smoother and chopped down this time, like a nice little puree at this stage. All right, so I'm going to keep on going my recipe now, but that is a little trick you can use if you're finding that when you are blending or chopping, that things are getting stuck up the side or they're not chopping properly. Pop your lid on, stick your spatula through the hole, and just use that to push everything down. All right, now 120 grams of cream. If you want this to be dairy-free, you could use coconut cream in here, or even a cashew cream or something like that. If you like the cow's milk, this gives you a really good feel, like a really similar to ice cream. Now, this one tells you to stick the spatula through the hole for this second blend. We'll stick it in like that. And we're going to give this about 40 seconds. Done. So now the next step is just to serve it immediately. So it is all finished. And that is our end result. So it is nice and creamy. It's really thick. So if you wanted to serve this up now, you could probably scoop it a little bit. If it was a bit too soft to fully mold into an ice cream scoop, you could just pop it into the freezer for another 10 minutes or half an hour, and then you'd be able to really scoop it out just like ice cream. But it will hold its form fairly well. It's only got 3 ingredients in it, so it's much, much better for you than your store-bought ice creams. And once it firms up a little bit in the freezer, you can scoop it into cones or ice block molds or anything like that. And it's absolutely delicious. That is just about it. Leave it up there. You guys can see that in there. What do you think? Yeah, cool. It's a little bit cold for it.
Amazing.
Just now. Amazing.
It's amazing.
Awesome, awesome. Now the best thing here is I've got 3 dirty bowls right now. I'm just going to put some water, a drop of dishwashing liquid in each, and put them on for pre-clean. And my washing up is done. I'll just rinse them when I'm finished, got some other stuff to wash up, and I'll be cleaned up for the night. So done 3 courses. I've literally got 1 chopping board, my couple of dirty bowls, and that is it. Really, really cool. Yeah. What did you guys think?
I can't wait to make the ice cream.
Cool, cool.
So just
Anything
put the
else?
monk fruit in instead of the raw sugar. Make it a bit sugar-free.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you mill that too?
You wouldn't need to mill that. It's a syrup, yeah?
No, it looks like sugar. White sugar.
Yeah, so it depends how fine it is. If it's fine like icing sugar, you could just leave the milling stage out. But if it's a little bit grainy like white sugar, just let it go through that milling stage.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. What about everyone else? Is there anything that surprised you? Anything that stood out that you liked? What did you think?
I loved it all. I love it. I love mine already. So I'm just so excited.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. What about you, Amber?
I love mine. I use it all the time.
Yeah, that's great. Did you pick up anything or learn anything tonight?
Yeah, I haven't made the ice cream. That looks pretty good.
Yeah,
So-
cool.
I didn't know to put the whole jug in the fridge. So that's good.
Yes.
I didn't either. I learned that.
So that's handy.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, look, that's what we're here for, is just to hopefully teach you one or two little new things, and just keep you, learning more all the time, getting more out of your machine, loving it a little bit more. We love to hear people saying, I'm loving it already. That's so good to hear. So, keep on going with it. I'm just going to turn our recording off